So thanks again. My name is Adam Sandman, and I'll be presenting about SpiraTeam and how it can be used to improve your QA excellence. Okay, so first of all, for those who are not familiar with Inflectra, let me give a little background as to the company and a background and intro into SpiraTeam and how it can help you transform your quality assurance. Well, as a company, Inflectra, we are committed to helping you deliver quality software faster and with lower risk. And particularly like to mention the quality and faster because we believe at Inflectra that there shouldn't be a trade-off necessarily between quality and speed. And oftentimes people feel like by delivering software faster with more frequent releases and a higher cadence with continuous development, that the quality may be suffering. And that doesn't need to be the case. Using our SpiraTeam product, we can help you improve quality and improve speed and not make that false trade-off. So how do we do that? Well, SpiraTeam is part of the wider Inflectra family of tools that help you manage quality. And so just to go through a little bit of some of the functionality we offer across our entire product suite, we offer everything from requirements management, quality assurance, risk management. We have tools to help with software development, project management, test automation, even program management and IT service management. Today, we'll be focusing on the SpiraTeam product, which is geared primarily towards, in this presentation, requirements management, quality assurance, testing, and project and program management. But we do offer a lot more than that. And we may have other webinars on some of our other tools coming up. So please watch out for those. So what is the SpiraTeam difference? So this is our offering in a block diagram. And if you look at this, we believe that quality should be infused throughout everything you do. So if you look at this block diagram and we zoom in on SpiraTeam particularly, a SpiraTeam combines what you would normally think of traditionally as a test management type of solution, which is our SpiraTest product, but also includes a full project management and lifecycle management and requirements management solution as well. And then we've integrated that with a source code management and DevOps platform. So it gives you an integrated quality platform for managing a project. A lot of times people have different tools being used for testing, for test management, for backlog planning, project management. The problem is the information gets missed, and a lot of the information being missed results in lack of quality or things falling under the rug, and therefore bugs getting into production and defects arising. So SpiraTeam really helps you plug that gap between the world of quality and requirements and the world of agile planning and backlog items and stories. And why is this the case? Well, at Inflectra, our company philosophy is all based around the idea of harmony, bringing harmony to your projects. And we do that in three major ways, three major themes. One is across disciplines, two is through simplicity, and three is across ecosystems. So when we say across disciplines, what that means is we have functionality in SpiraTeam, and you'll see this in the live application, that is going to be useful for people in these different roles, for testers, developers, managers, and also people like business analysts, risk managers, project managers, program managers, automation testers, manual testers. So when we talk about these different roles, there's actually a wide range of roles under each of these three. But we bring harmony because the functionality in the tool is designed to appeal to all these different audiences. What we often find when we talk to customers is they have really good tools for the development team, building code, compiling pipelines, that's really top notch. But the testers are living in a world of spreadsheets and Word documents, or we may have a test management tool that they've chosen that really doesn't integrate well with the pipelines. For the managers, they need to know what's going on and be able to make decisions and add resources to the team, make sure the team is harmonious and working well. And if they don't have access to that information, if it's not being kept up to date because the people don't like the products they're using, then they can't make good decisions. So those three major groups have to work together for a team to be functioning well. And we believe that's really important. And SpiraTeam really promotes that cross-discipline communication and collaboration. Another big difference in SpiraTeam with some of the other platforms is we don't want you to spend weeks and weeks customizing it, configuring it. We don't believe that's a valuable use of your time. We'd rather be using SpiraTeam to actually be delivering your product that you're delivering for your customers. So therefore, when you first use SpiraTeam, and the demo I'll be giving is from a basically out-of-the-box version, it comes with standard workflows, templates, all the major configuration has been done. Of course, you can customize it. You can add plugins, you can integrate with other systems. It's all very easy to do. You can configure workflows, change processes, but you don't have to do that day one. You don't have to assemble your own tool effectively from a bunch of parts. It's a complete solution that literally you can use out of the box from day one. And in that vein, a lot of tools that we have customers coming from, they see everything as one thing, an issue. So if everything's an issue, then if because you have an issue tracker, it means like the hammer and the nail analogy. If you have an issue tracker, that everything is really an issue. And in Spira, one of the design decisions that's a bit different than some other tools is we have discrete artifacts, and you'll see that we have requirements, which includes things like user stories, epics, features. We also have requirements like use cases that are a bit different as well. Also, in that we have test cases, we have defects, we have tasks. And releases, and they're all actually different artifacts with discrete functions, and they work in a certain way, and we put design and thought into them, so that way it really optimizes your process rather than taking an issue tracker and trying to mold it into a process. And in that sense, Spira really guides you from beginning to end. And we'll see this as we go through the presentation and the live demonstration. We'll be starting out with requirements planning, test planning, sprint planning, scheduling, resourcing, tracking, and execution, right from the life cycle from beginning to end, from idea to basically delivery. Another thing that's really important in Spira is what we call the harmony across ecosystems concept, which is that we know that in any given team, you may be using different technologies. You may have some teams using something like Jira, maybe using GitLab or GitHub, maybe a Microsoft tool like Azure DevOps, maybe Salesforce, maybe ServiceNow, or some open source tools like Redmine, Bugzilla, Mantis. That's surprising, they're still in use on a lot of teams. We can actually integrate with those different teams and bring that information and fuse it into SpiraTeam. So that way different teams can work in their favorite tools, but all the information and the traceability and the planning and visibility and reporting is all in the SpiraTeam hub in the center. Some differentiators that we have as well that we think a lot of our clients have told us they find particularly useful. First of all, the cloud and on-premise option. Many of our competitors are moving to the SaaS cloud only option, and that we do have a completely SaaS option. It can be hosted in different regions, in Europe, North America, Asia, and Australia. So we have different cloud options available for different customers, and the data remains in that region from a data residency standpoint. But also we do have an on-premise option, and we have a long-term commitment to maintaining that. We have customers in certain industries like defense, aerospace, automotive, and financial services and insurance, as well as certain other key sensitive industries like biotech, where they want the data to be resident on their own servers or in a private cloud, like their own private Azure, Google, Microsoft, or Amazon cloud, but they want control over that. So we have those different options available to you, and whichever option you choose, whether it's the public cloud hosted by Inflectra, whether it's the private cloud or truly on-premise, it's the same application, the same features, same API, and the same release cadence. And you can move backwards and forwards. They're fully compatible. We've had clients move to and from the cloud depending on their business needs at different times. So that way you're not locked into a specific cloud or a specific deployment model. And then lastly, the concurrent licensing model is very useful, especially when you have people who want to log in, perhaps and just read a report or view a dashboard, or you've got teams in different time zones. The concurrent licensing model doesn't penalize you for having those occasional users who want to come in and use the system. It also lets you use the system at an enterprise level in an affordable way and let people outside of the core user group have access to it when needed. Okay, one sec. There we go. Also, SpiraTeam comes with technical support built in. We have our 24-hour help desk. We have unlimited support available. We also have what we call technical ninja sessions, which are online, like a sort of Genius Bar kind of session. We also have an online learning platform, Inflectra Campus, that comes with the product as well. And it's so easy to use, and we're so committed to this self-service turnkey model that 99% of our customers don't even need any training or assistance. But some of our larger customers do, and we do have accelerators and a partner network available to help you when you need help deploying the tool and configuring it quickly. We do have that available as an option. So how does it work for you? We have customers in different industries using SpiraTeam. And one of the key things that we find is that a lot of our customers in these different industries, and we'll talk about some example use cases, they're struggling because they're working in the world on the right, which is the world of software development, delivering in 2-week sprints, having CI/CD pipelines, using agile methodologies, they're using DevOps, they've got distributed teams, they're highly digital, being able to release software into production every hour. On the left-hand side, though, what they have is unfortunately a legal and regulatory framework that they have to support. For example, an insurance company or a bank or a biotech company has to be able to, prove to regulators that their software has been adequately tested, particularly on the QA side of things. And the speed of the regulation, the speed of compliance doesn't keep up with the agile process on the right. But with SpiraTeam and on the Inflectra suite in general, we help you synchronize the speed of the left and the right together. Because SpiraTeam, for example, has the ability to manage a Scrum project, a Kanban project. It's got storyboards, it's got Kanban boards, it's got requirements and task management, it's got all of that built in, DevOps integration. At the same time, you can use it to do risk management, baselining, you can do reports for compliance, you've got electronic signatures built in for biotech type projects, it's got workflows, sign-offs, all of the things on the left that you need, but you can do them at the speed of the items on the right. So it really bridges that agile and compliance world. And some examples of features that we have for different industries. This is not an exhaustive list, just certain key industries. For life sciences and biotech and healthcare, we have electronic signatures built in. This is actually also needed for certain DoD projects as well. We can host the application in our cloud, and we have a HIPAA BAA certified hosting. And we have the end-to-end traceability you need to satisfy your validation requirements. In addition to that, the Spira platform itself is validated for life science, where you can control the update cadence. For financial services and insurance and banking type clients, we use a SOC 2 and equivalent security certified platform, and you can deploy on-premise. So really it's up to you which deployment model, but it gives you that flexibility. We can generate financial compliance documentation. We've got a built-in risk management module. We can do automated testing of any kinds of application, everything from mainframes to web to desktop to mobile to APIs. And that's done using our test automation plugin called Repease that extends the SpiraTeam platform to include automated testing. And SpiraTeam itself, of course, does offer that end-to-end traceability and auditability you need for your Sarbanes-Oxley and other financial reporting requirements. We have a lot of people using Spira in the energy, industrial, and automotive spaces. In energy, we've got clients using it to manage the testing of all the applications in power plants, testing for the public safety of those applications, everything from, garden variety Microsoft Office apps that have to be retested to complex sensor applications in a power plant. We understand risk and risk management is a key part of that, and that's why it's fully baked in. And we also have clients in the automotive space using Spira for requirements and test management of both the end items, but also a lot of the parts and systems that go into automotive products. Another large area for Spira is defense and government, particularly when I say government, the mission side of things, defense, aerospace, and mission systems. Some of the functionality we have there is the ability to do test step level traceability. You can link not just test cases to requirements, but test steps. And that is a requirement for a lot of mission systems and aerospace systems. And we do have also lots of automation integration with our remote launch agent that lets you integrate different types of automation. We've had clients integrate complex mapping applications, MATLAB, and custom built missile and other types of geospatial tracking apps, and they have to test those, and they built custom frameworks to do that, but integrated that into SpiraTeam so that all the information, all the test results go into SpiraTeam, regardless if it comes from an in-house framework or not. Here's some of the customers that we have. I've mentioned some of them by use case, but this is a larger list. It's obviously not the full list, just some of the cooler logos that we have. If you go to our website, you can get the larger list. And then again, it's done by industry, but these again, not the only ones. And these are some of the key features to summarize that we do have for this agile and compliance functionality that's baked into SpiraTeam: traceability, privacy, documentation, workflows, and integration across the software chain. Spira does let you and streamlines you complying with various standards from FDA Part 11 for bio, the various ISO standards that cross industries, the ISO standard for risk management, the ISO standard for automotive, which is 26262, the airborne software standard for building onboard IT systems, DO178C, as well as the more general GDPR and NIST standards for security and privacy. So again, when you use SpiraTeam, we do have you covered for all of the compliance needs in the organization. And of course, as I mentioned earlier on, back to the harmony concept, we believe that SpiraTeam, should fit seamlessly into your ecosystem, and we will show some of the key big platforms, but that's actually not the whole story. Not just as well as these big platforms that we integrate with, we do integrate with over 70 different products. And this list is probably already out of date because we're always adding new integrations. If you're using CI/CD, GitLab, GitHub, Jenkins, Circle CI, Azure DevOps, TeamCity, or Bamboo. Automation, we've got a whole bunch of different automated testing integrations, both for commercial tools as well as the open source frameworks like Mocha or Jasmine or JUnit. We've also got support for different load testing tools. And of course, many of our clients, maybe you're in this category, coming from document formats like Excel and Word, they say that Excel is still the #1 testing tool. Word is the #1 requirements management tool. And I wish that wasn't true, but it is true. And so we do have import tools from those different document formats, as well as the ability to integrate and import from other legacy or alternative platforms that maybe are no longer fitting your needs. So if you are using something like TestRail or HPALM or one of its predecessors like Quality Center, Practice Test, Q-Test, we do have integrations, migration tools that can pull that data into Spira. Also the open source TestLink product as well. So whatever tool you're using today or document, we do have migration tools to streamline the adoption into SpiraTeam. And with that, we're going to move into the live demo portion, which is the exciting part. And just to give you an idea, the demo will be focusing on these 6 areas of the system. SpiraTeam does have a lot of functionality. I'm not going to try and cover everything in the tool. There's a lot of functionality around planning and agile planning and project management that will lead to a different webinar, but it is in the system, so I will point it out. But the focus is going to be on the requirements, testing, program management, reporting, collaboration, and improvement. And so before I do that, make sure everything's good. Okay, and again, if you've got any questions, do put them in the Q&A window rather than the chat. So let's go over to the live application over here. So this is SpiraTeam right here, and I'm logged into it as one of the sample users. Everything you see today is basically an out-of-the-box version of the system, with the exception that I've done some demos, so you may see some extra sample data, but for the most part, it's out of the box. And when you first come into the system, just to orient you, you log in, you come into this My page. On the My page, this is where you'll see all the key information as an end user. So if you come in here and you're like, what am I going to do today? What do I have to do? This is the page for you. You can come in here and see all the work assigned to you. So on the QA side of things, that's typically going to be coming in and seeing your assigned requirements, maybe seeing your assigned tests to run, and those are called test sets. Individual tests might also be assigned to you. And of course, if you started testing and got interrupted in the middle of it, you would see that here in the My Pending Test Runs that you can resume. In addition to that, when you find defects, which unfortunately in real life you will do, you can see these defects right here. And those defects will be visible on the My page in Spira. They can be synchronized with other tools. I'll talk about that at the end. And also when you find defects and assign them to someone, if you happen to be a developer, you would see them in the assigned incident section. And if you're working on the project management side or maybe the infrastructure side, any assigned tasks that are not test related will typically be assigned here as well. And those could be things like development tasks, it could be code reviews, it could be management tasks, infrastructure, IT, anything that really is not testing is typically going to be part of a task and then assigned as well. And of course, we do have a news feed at the top. So if you want to see what's going on at Inflectra, like today's webinar, in fact, it's right here. You can always see the latest news and views right here in the homepage. So let's go into the project selection just to show you how it organizes. SpiraTeam is organized into what we call products and programs. Products are the systems that you'll be testing. Typically, that will contain your requirements, your test cases, all the key information, and that can be reported on as a single product. We also have the ability to roll it up into a program view, which I'll come back to, and that lets you see everything at a program level. But let's start off with the project level, and then we'll come back to the program level. So if we click on a particular product, I'm going to be working out of this sample that we have. If I go to its dashboard, there is a nice dashboard where you can see the key information around the product, the recent activity that's been going on, the percentage completion of requirements. You can see the releases and sprints and phases. Are we ahead? Are we behind schedule? What's our completion? So there's a lot of project management based information in here as well. So since this is a QA focused webinar, let's look at the testing view. Now these views are pre-configured views. You can add items to any of the views to match what you want to see. They're just 3 pre-configured starting points. Since this is again a QA webinar, let's look at the testing one. So some of the metrics you can see from a QA standpoint would be, what's my requirements test coverage? How many requirements do I have? Have they been adequately tested? Do we have full coverage? Or as we see here, there's a large hole where at least 50% of our requirements can't be tested because we haven't written any tests. And those tests could be manual, they could be automated, up to you, could be exploratory, really up to you. But you can see the test progress over time, both in an absolute sense and also in a cumulative sense over here. And this dashboard will also show you the test status by set, by release. You can then also see the requirements regression coverage. You can see defect counts to see which defects are tied to which requirement and other key metrics like that. You can customize this dashboard as well, as I mentioned, by hitting the plus button and adding additional items from our catalog. Just to mention, this dashboard can also be focused by choosing a specific release. If you choose a specific release, it will show you everything in that release and any of its child sprints. So you can see here we've got 3 sprints. We can track the status of the testing in each sprint, and it's rolled up to the parent release. I'll expand that back. So now let's go into the meat of the system, where we're going to be starting to plan and test our requirements. So from a QA standpoint, we do believe that you should start with your requirements that you'll be testing. Some clients may say, we don't have requirements. So what do you have? How do you build the software? Well, we've user stories, we have features. Maybe you only have high-level functional areas. So we recommend in Spira, to get the most out of the system, at the very least, document the highest level requirements that you have. If they're in a Word doc or a spreadsheet, use one of our import tools to do that. If you're doing user stories, they can be pulled in from an external system like Jira. You can also augment those with other requirements that may not be user story based. For example, you might have user stories that describe how the system is going to be built, but maybe there's additional requirements that describe how it's going to be used in different contexts. You need to test against both of those. So that can be done very easily in the system. And every requirement that you see in this grid does have a option of linking it to a test case. And where you don't have a test case, it will say not covered, like this one here. And if you run a filter, you can find any requirement that's missing test cases. So these are all of our not covered requirements that you can see. Similarly, if you want to find all of the requirements that have at least one failure, you can do that also just using a different filter. And you can combine filters to add a priority to that as well. I'm going to come back and create a requirement. Before I do that, just to expand on some of the views, this is the requirements tree view. We have a flat list view, which you can sort. We also have, which is interesting, a board view. On the board view, you can see this requirement, and you can see its 4 test cases in a graphical story card form. So this is my story card. And these are my 4 test cases that link to it. 2 are not run, that's why they're gray. 1 is passed, which is green, and 1 is blocked, which is yellow. And you can then track the progress of these statuses of these requirements on this Kanban board. If you're coming from a document-centric world, like maybe IBM Doors, which we have migration tools for, you may be more familiar with documents. So we do have a document view of requirements as well. These are the exact same artifacts as we saw on the board or in the grid. They're just now in a document form. You can go in here and you can edit them inline as well. And then lastly, we of course do have a mind map view, so you can see all the requirements and their relationships in a graphical form. And the color coding is the priority, and you can always click on any of these items and of course edit them inline as well. So that's some of the views that we have. Let's go ahead and create some requirements, and then let's go ahead and add some test cases to them. So how do we do that? Very easy. Let's go in here and create a new requirement. I'll add it in the grid right here. And this is meant to be an online library system, which is actually a real sample app we do have, which we can use for automated testing. So let's talk about something that would be relevant. So in the book management section, let's say we need as a user, I want to be able to see my overdue books, for example. Maybe that's the new requirement, the new feature we want. We've created it. It's listed as not covered. There's no tasks associated with it. So let's drill into it one level. In Spira, you have a workflow engine, so you can go in here, and the workflow will track the progression of this requirement through its different statuses. There are some automations built in. So if I go in here, I might want to assign this to a release. Let's say this is going to be in release 1. When I do that, it's going to automatically switch to planned. You can control whether you want that automation active or not. And then, of course, from a development standpoint, let's go in here And I'm not going to focus again too much on this because this is more of a QA-oriented webinar, but just so that you can see, you can go in here and you could go and manually create tasks by hitting new task, and that would create like a, develop the feature, do the code review, etc., all of the non-testing tasks. But we do also have presets. So one of the options that's nice in Spira is you can create a set of standard tasks or standard test cases, which become your steps to doneness. And by doing that, you haven't got to create them each time. So I'm going to be lazy because it's a demo, and I'm going to choose a list of existing tasks, and I'm just going to add that to my requirement. So it just created 4 tasks for me for my standard set. And now I have, look, design review, deployment, code review, and development. Perfect. That's a great time saver. And I can do the same thing with my test cases. If I have standard tests I need to do for every single requirement, I could do this option here and say create test cases. I haven't defined any of those, so I won't do that. But the other thing that I can do is I can go into my test coverage section and say, listen, let's go ahead and let's link it to an existing test case. So let me go to my bank of functional tests, and maybe I've got a test that can already handle that, viewing my overdue books. I actually don't see that one. So let's go ahead. Maybe we have a regression test, which tests overall book management. Well, let's add that one. So we've got a regression test, but we're still missing a functional test. So let's go ahead and add a new one from scratch. So if you ever need a test case that doesn't yet exist because it's a brand new feature, we've got this nice shortcut where you can actually create a test case directly from the requirement. I'm going to do that right now. That's how easy it is. And now we have it right here. And it's going to ask me to verify as a user, I want to be able to see my overdue books. And if I click on that, it's going to take me now into the testing part of Spira. And so this is my new test case. Okay, now before I start working on this and showing you how to edit this, let's go back to the test case module and see what's going on. So if I go to my test case module, here's all my test cases, and I'm just going to unfilter. I'm currently filtering by a release, by status. And so you'll see that my new test case is right here. So one of the things we often recommend is having a nice organization of my tests. So what we'll do is create folders and subfolders. So what I can do is I can take these two, and I want to put them both into my functional folder. One is one I created this time, and one is from a previous demo. So I just drag and drop it, and now it's available here in this particular folder for easier organization. And if you click on it, I want to see my overdue books. You can, obviously on that grid, you can sort, you can filter and search. You can also filter by release to see everything in a particular version. But let's go ahead and spend a little bit of time on this test case. Now, notice that this is a draft test case. It hasn't yet been written or approved. At some point, we're going to finalize this, and we can move it through its workflow and have approvals. When it's approved, if one of these linked requirements here is to change, the suspect flag gets set automatically. So we do have the option of tracking downstream impacts to test cases when requirements change. But let's go ahead and actually write the test. So we want to see our overdue books. That's what we want to do. So the name of the test case, it took from the requirement, it prefixed it with verify, and that reads to me pretty well. You can obviously rename it if you want to make it sound a little different. In the description, though, because the requirement didn't have a description, there's no description for the test case. If there was one, it will be automatically populated. So I'll go ahead and add one myself. So this test will log into the system and verify that we can see all of the overdue, and I did that deliberately because I have a spell checker, library books. And the text editors in Spira are rich text editors, so you can do fully formatted text in here. You can do tables, you can do code snippets, links, bullets, different font colors, embed video, whatever it is that makes sense. You can do that right here in the text editor. So let me add just some bullets to show you can do that. Maybe let's say something like will display, name, author, ISBN, overdue, or date, due date. That's right, which is going to be overdue. So that's how you can write the description. I'll hit save. When you make changes to the description, it of course is going to be stored in the version history. Everything you do is in the version history. If you go in here and change the priority, maybe it's a high priority test case, change the component or set the component, hit that button, it's going to add to the history as well. So any change you make will always be tracked in the history of the system. So we've got a full audit trail. Okay, let's go ahead and actually edit the steps. Now, this is a manual test case, and depending on the kind of test you're doing, we've got several different types. So you can make this a traditional functional test where you're going to have steps. That's what we're going to do today. You can also make it an exploratory test. With an exploratory test, you can actually write the test case as you're doing the actions. So this becomes a test case charter, a test charter really, and all you'd have is the name and description. And then when you run the test, you can capture what you're doing, and that can then be the steps for a future test when the functionality has solidified in terms of what it's doing. This is very useful when it's a new piece of functionality in a sprint and it's evolving in terms of the UI or the capabilities. And then lastly, if you go down to automation, we do support automated testing because that's obviously an important part of testing. And that can be done using either our automation tool called Rapise, or it can be done using one of the automation tools that we integrate with. And if you are curious what we integrate with, just go to the Inflectra website, choose SpiraTeam, and then these are all of the free plugins that we have. Just choose automated testing. And here you can see all the different automation tools that we integrate with, plus all the load testing tools, plus any of the unit test frameworks and open source frameworks that we integrate with as well. There's a whole bunch more too. We integrate with different code providers, different build tools, IDEs. All this is available and again free with Spira. Okay, so let's go ahead and write a test case. So I've got my first step. The system does create a default step, so you can run it. You can turn that on or off. I don't want that right now because I want to create a step. So let me do that. And I'm going to create a step. So the first step would be, we're going to report on the overdue books. So let's say, click on reporting in main menu. The list of reports is displayed. Save in new. And click on the overdue book report. The list of overdue books is displayed. And let's pretend we want to get a picture of that and put that into my test case. So let me this is our fictitious system. I'm going to log into it quickly. And this is a real application if you want to play around. It doesn't actually have overdue books, but it does have a book list. So let's go ahead and pretend that's overdue. It's not actually, but I'll just do a print screen and I'll paste that in. And there you go, hit save. Now I've got my two-step test case. Now, one thing you may notice if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, it says here the test will log into the system. I didn't write that though. So, and that's by design. We could obviously go in here and we could do insert step and add a login test case, a login step. But that's something you're going to do in lots of different places. Every test has to log in first. So one of the cool things about Spira is you can create reusable test cases and include them into your other test cases. So I'll do that. I've done that ahead of time. I've created a common test. In fact, it's in the sample. So you can do it yourself after this demo, and you can go in here and you can just choose the login to application existing test case. And we can use the parameters feature to even pass through some of the parameters that we will be using in this test. So that way, when you call the test, we're linking that first test case in, the one that does the logging in section, and that we will include those steps when we run this test, but it automatically includes it and passes that data. If you want to see what that test case looks like, you can just click on it and bring it up in another tab. And now you can see this is a test case that does the logging in portion. And it in fact actually calls another test case to open up the web browser. So you can create multiple levels of nested test cases. So one of our biz dev personnel likened it to Inception, the movie, where you have a dream and a dream and a dream. You've got a test in a test in a test. We also have test parameters right here, so you can see the login and the password, and that is a parameter that can be passed from the parent test case to the child test case. As well as being able to do that, the other thing we can do is we want to be able to organize our tests. So what I mean by that is, if you look back here, you've got lots and lots of tests in different folders, which is great. And you may have a massive test library with lots and lots of different tests. So you want to assign those to someone to run the tests, but you might want to do it in different combinations. And you don't want to have to be limited by which folder the test is in. So a test set is a way of grouping together different test cases from different folders and putting them into an assignable set. So for example, here's an example we've done ahead of time, where you've got a set where it's called regression testing, and you can see we've got these different parameter values, and these are the test cases we're going to run. So that's an example of one already done. Let's go ahead and create a new one just to show you how it would look. So let's go ahead and do sample test set for QA webinar. This is the manual set because we're going to manual test cases in it. If you had included automated tests, you would change the type to automatic. And in fact, if you change the machine, add a machine name for it to run on, it will automatically become automated. Or it can be automatically become manual. So depending on what kind of test it is, if it's going to have automation scripts, assign it to a machine to run on, and it automatically gets selected as automated. If you want to have a human run it like me, it's a manual test, you assign it to a person instead. So let's go ahead and add some tests to my set. To do that, you go into the add button. You can then browse by name or search. So if I go to my functional tests, let's search by overdue, because we know that's what we want to add. There's my overdue test. Let me add that one. Maybe another test we're going to do in this exact same set is the regression test for books, maybe. There we go. Okay, oh, perfect. Good. Add that. So I've now got 2 tests in my test set. You can, of course, drag and drop them to change the order. So if you want to do the first one second, just drag and drop. Now that's to change the play order. If you want to set parameter values, you can do that right here, and that will be sent through from the parent through to the child. So maybe I want to log in as a different user, not librarian, maybe admin, for example. So you can set that value here, and it will override what's in the test cases. You can also set the parameter value at an individual test case instance level as well, if there are any. Like this. So we can put it back to librarian even. So you can mix and match parameter values at the test case, test set, or test case instance level. So now we've put our test into a set. Let's assign it to someone. We'll assign it to be run on release 1. We'll assign it to me to run. It goes to my page, and I will set the date and time. For an automated test, you might want to set a recurrence schedule. You can with a manual, but it's less common. So usually with one time. You can also have it scheduled on build. And that, again, is also useful for both automated and manual. That means whenever the pipeline runs and it passes, we auto-schedule the test to be ready right after that. Okay, and I can't type spell webinar. Okay, so we've assigned it. We've also set the plan date. When I hit save, it sends an email to me, and I would go and run this from the My page, or I can do it right here. I'll do it from right here to save a little bit of time. And that's going to take me through into the execution wizard. So here's how you would run the test. I can pick the build from my Jenkins server or a GitLab or GitHub server, depending on what we're using. That lets me tie my test run to a specific build of the application, not just a version. Same thing, we can choose which operating system and browser. These are just some custom fields we set up in the demo. It's up to you what you want to track against. And this is how you would track against the different tests and different information. So first of all, this is the first one. This is the first test case we did, not the one that I actually did today from a previous demo. Let's just say that all passed, nice and easy. The second one, let's say that failed. So we logged in, that was good. Logged in with a login and password, that worked. And we clicked on the menu. We see the reports. We go to the overdue book report. Well, guess what? There isn't one. If I go here, there's no overdue book report. I don't see one. Doesn't exist. So that's fine. We'll mark that as a fail and say no menu link visible to report on overdue books. That sounds like a bug to me. So we hit fail. Before we hit fail, we also might want to log a defect. So we click on the defect tab. It will say there's no existing defects linked to this test step, which makes sense because it's a brand new test case. But in other times, it might be an existing defect that's open. So you don't want to duplicate it. So you could link to it instead. But let's go ahead and log a new issue. Missing link to overdue books. We'll say that is a bug. We'll say it's high. These are just some custom values that you can fill out. We've made them required. And I'm going to hit fail. And now I've failed the step and I failed the whole test case and I'm done with testing. There are some different views of testing. There's the mini view and the table view as well, depending on what you want to look at. You can also run the application in an iframe if you want to actually work on one monitor, one physical monitor. That can be really useful too. Oh, I need to make it HTTPS, security standards. There we go. So that way you can work in Spira and click around here and capture results over there. There we're done. So that's how you would run a test case. And if you go down to the test runs, you'll see it has created a new test run. It's right here. And there's my failed report, which is always more interesting than the past one. There's my failed step, and you can see my actual result and my expected result. I did log a defect. That defect is right here. Click on that. And now I'm taken into the defect tracking portion of the system. And so the defect tracker is right here, and I would now triage the bug, fix it, and get it to be retested. And that can all be managed right here in Spira. If I go back to the incident view, we have different views of incidents. This is the grid view. We also have a board view. So just like we saw for the requirements, there's a board view as well as the grid. So that way you can track the progress of the incidents and issues in your Kanban board like that. It also is very useful if you're going to be load balancing, assigning different people. So that's how you do some of the triaging. So let me just go back to my demo. We talked about test planning and management. We talked about requirements management and linking them to test cases. We're going to talk a bit about program management and reporting. And so let's go ahead and do that. So before we get into program management, let's look at reporting. We did, first of all, look at the dashboards already. So we have, of course, these built-in dashboards that let you do quick high-level reporting on the test status of a project. If we go into reporting, however, we can do a lot more detailed reporting. I'm going to just unset this filter back to all. So you can see lots of time phase graph and charts here. Any of the graphs and charts you can see, you can export the data grid out of that, both visualize the grid and also literally export to a CSV file. As well as these time phase reports, and I should mention these reports, you can add different reports to the dashboard. These are some of the ones that are available out of the box. You can go in here and pick different graphs. You can also write your own custom graphs, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But you can create custom graphs as well as using the ones that we've written. All of the graphs that you see here can be displayed along with the data grid and the information behind it, as well as exporting the graphic. We do support different types of graph, and here we've got some built-in ones. Like, for example, here's my test case summary. I can graph any of my test case fields against any of my other fields. So one is on the x-axis, and one is the grouping by, the color, different coloring, and that can be any of the standard fields or any of the custom fields. Also, if we scroll down, we'll see the same thing for requirements, same thing for defects, same thing for tasks. As well as that, we've also got an incident aging graph and turnaround graphs. We've got burn down, burn up velocity graphs, and we also have the custom graphs. So this example here, instance by status, this happens to be a custom graph. We've actually written the query directly in the tool as an admin and published it. And if you click on this one, you can see we've got a donut chart, a line chart, or a bar chart version. We can also get the data out of that as well. And the only reason I know that's a custom graph is if I go over here to administration, I can go to reporting and graphing. Here we go. We'll do both. And that's where you can see all of the custom graphs that I've written. And so if I go to that custom graph, you can see behind the scenes, that's the SQL query we're using to actually display the data. And if I click the button, it's going to show me a preview of the data and a preview of the graph. So if you're going to write custom graphs, you can do that right here in the system and publish that for your teams to use. And then it's available in the dashboard, just like any other graph. Similarly, we can also do reports. We can edit different reports. Some of the most common ones we'll do just for today will be like the requirements traceability. So we've seen that we can see all of the requirements linked to all the test cases. We can do coverage analysis. What about a report of that? Because obviously we want to be able to capture that and archive it maybe, or give it to someone who's not in the system. So we can run a report. In this case, I'm doing PDF. You can pick what elements to include. You can also filter that report. Do I want all the requirements, or I just want the requirements planned for a certain version? Do I want all the test cases, or just ones that will run in a certain release or are of a certain type? It's really up to you. I'm going to run everything because it's not a big project, but in a very large project, you might want to segment the data. Anytime you run a report, you can save the query to make it a shared and saved report that you can run with one click. You can also have the option to save the generated report, the actual PDF in this case, or the Excel or the Word, can be archived in Spira's document management system. And Spira does have a built-in document management capability as well. That's outside of the scope of today's demo, but we do have that. And I'm going to open up the RTM. There's my RTM requirements, linked to test cases, and linked to other requirements in a nice table structure that you can see here. And that, again, going back to the idea of bridging the worlds of testing, quality, and project management, and development, and compliance. And when you run that report, you could, as well as generating the PDF right here and then, you can also archive that, and that is available in the document management system, which is right here. And that's, again, for a future webinar, but we do have a full place where you can write content, diagrams, documents, flowcharts, BTD files, Markdown. It's very flexible, and it's basically a place where you can do collaboration and document collaboration. Okay, so to round off today's demo, the last piece of the puzzle is the program management. Now, program management in Spira team is relatively limited. It's much more powerful in the SpiraPlan version that we have. So in SpiraPlan, we have program management functionality, including scaled agile, which is coming out in a month's time, where you can have program backlogs and program capabilities and program releases and milestones. We also have more options at the program level. But SpiraTeam, even by itself, does have some basic program management that you can start with, and then from there on, you can upgrade to SpiraPlan to get even more functionality. The real benefit from a QA standpoint, though, is if you've got lots of different projects. For example, we have these 5 different projects here. You can track the test pass or fail for each of them and see it in one place. So we have a program level dashboard. Rather than having to go through 3 or 4 different projects, you can go here and see all your products in the program and track all the results in a single sheet of music. Let's see, collaboration. Oh, one thing to mention, we should talk about collaboration before we move on. If you go into the system and we look at the any of the artifacts, so if I go into the system and I happen to be on let's say it's a requirement, but it could be a test case. Anything you make a change to this item, depending on the email notification rules you set up, we will send notifications out of the system. It will do it based on events. Those events are configured right here in the notification events, and that's something that an admin of the project will set up. And these events will determine who gets notified and what the email will look like. And we can even customize the template of the email right here as well. So it's super flexible. That's a release one. Let's do a requirement one right there. So again, super flexible. But in addition to that, if you want to just be notified when a single requirement changes, a specific one, we do have the ability to subscribe to an item, which will be me, that I'm subscribing, or I can add a follower, which is to add someone else. So that way you can add people to the different parts of the system, different items, and they can then follow it. The other thing you'll notice is an instant messenger. You'll notice here that the Fred and Joe, they've got this circle that's got no green in it. If I go to a requirement that's associated to me, as system admin, you'll see there is a green circle. Well, that means, like any other instant messenger, it means I'm available. And so Spira does have a built-in instant messenger between different members of the team. So you can do real-time messaging, just like any other instant messenger. The nice feature there, which is not in most instant messengers, is you can then take the outcome of the conversation and post selected messages as a comment, which then becomes a persistent comment right down here. So we can chat about this feature, and then when we're agreed in the chat, we can take the last couple of comments from the chat and it auto post them onto the requirement as a final reference of what we agreed to. So that's an overview of SpiraTeam and its functionality. If you want to learn more, of course, go to the website, go to SpiraTeam. You can sign up for a free trial, which is available 30 days, full functionality. Hit the button and just put URL in it. It will configure it for you. We also can do live demos like this one, but dedicated to you and your team. And if you want more information on the pricing, that's also 100% transparent on the website. So you don't have to, deal with a complex sales process. Go here, pick how many concurrent users you want, pick if you want cloud, do you want download, up to you, and away you go. And all of the plugins and add-ons do come free with SpiraTeam. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Teresa to moderate any questions that we now have.
Thanks so much, Adam. That was a fantastic presentation of the full functionality of SpiraTeam. We do have a few questions coming in. One question was asked early on while you were demonstrating the functionality with the slides. And the question is, what do you mean by integrated ALM?
Oh, that's great. See, it's funny. I actually had that in the original slide, and then I took that out because this is a more QA focused webinar. So if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to go to the original version of the presentation that we did from an earlier webinar, which was more ALM focused. And we do have a slide here on what ALM is. So what is ALM anyway? ALM is basically an umbrella term that it depends. It basically means everything in the software lifecycle to do with software applications. So whereas, for example, a QA is really around the testing, the quality of requirements, perhaps, depending on how you define QA, that could be controversial. Software development, some of the the DevOps, the infrastructure, collaboration, project management, task management, all these things have to go into building an application. So ALM is basically the umbrella term for the entire life cycle. So it's very similar in that sense to DevOps, and it talks about planning, developing, testing, deploying, and maintaining. So it's managing the entire application lifecycle. One difference I think between ALM and maybe DevOps, though, is ALM is broader. It's not just building new software. For example, ALMs, like tools like SpiraTeam, are often used when you have a package application like SAP. So if you're going to deploy SAP or Salesforce in your organization, Obviously, it's a package implementation, but you're doing a bunch of customizations to it in the app, maybe reporting, maybe workflows, and how are you going to test all that? And so an ALM tool like Spira is broader than just a project management or software development lifecycle tool. It does manage applications, both ones you're building and ones that you may have bought and are deploying and configuring, because a lot of the same concepts will apply. Instead of writing requirements for building something, you're going to write requirements for configuring it. You're going to have test cases to make sure that the core application like Salesforce is testable. Maybe you've got some plugins that have to be tested with Salesforce in an end-to-end test. Maybe you've got to do some tracking of the defects that have happened. There's going to be infrastructure tasks, upgrading tasks. So a lot of the same activities have to happen, but ALM is designed to be a more agnostic term than just simply software development or software testing. Hopefully that helps.
You even have a visual aid. That's fantastic. Another question that came in early was really speaking to our tool and any services that we may provide. So maybe that's a great time to mention our accelerator packages and our partners that can help with implementation and provide services.
Okay, yeah, so absolutely. We do have, first of all, we have our accelerators that Teresa mentioned under the company solution menu. Accelerators are pre-built packages of services that we've negotiated with our partners to deliver. So, for example, if you were, since we're talking QA, let's say your company is wants to modernize its QA, and you see SpiraTeam, you love the functionality, it looks very good, but you're busy, you're trying to deliver your products, not necessarily implement a new tool. We have partners that can basically accelerate the implementation. That's why we call them accelerators, because they're not required. You can implement SpiraTeam completely by yourself at no cost, apart from the tool, but you're doing it yourself. So an accelerator is just to accelerate that process. That's why we call them that. And in a typical accelerator, there's a discovery phase where the team will work out with you what are some of the main benefits you want to have deploying SpiraTeam. And we want it to be measurable. We want to make sure that you measure that we've delivered value, not just deployed a tool. So they work with you to figure out what are the main use cases, what are some measures of success. Then we'll do any training of the core tool. We then figure out, is there any migration? Maybe it's coming from another tool. Maybe it's coming from Excel. Maybe it's coming from both. Are you integrating with automation? Is it our automation tool? Do you already have a Selenium framework? Do you already have load testing, security testing? How do we integrate those pipelines? Maybe you've got some reporting needs that aren't built into the tool, or maybe they'll create a couple of custom reports for you. So the whole idea here is that by the end of that engagement, you have SpiraTeam installed, configured, integrated into your environment. Your team is trained, and any reports that you need are in place. So you go from basically nothing to fully ready to go in an accelerated time frame. And these accelerators are typically delivered by Inflectra partners, and all the partners come from our partnership network, and everyone on our partnership network is certified. We have training requirements, certification requirements, and if anyone's watching this call and wants to become a partner, although this is not the focus of today's webinar, absolutely looking for companies to join our network. If you want to become a partner, click on this link and you can see what's required, what some of the opportunities are, what some of the requirements for you are. And one of the things that we really want to do is make sure that our partners are trained and knowledgeable, because that way, if you're a customer coming to us and you're implementing an accelerator, the people you're going to be working with know our tool inside and out and understand how to use it to make your life easier.
Awesome. And speaking of training, one of the other questions was, are we connected with Coursera? So a great time to talk about Inflectra Campus.
Correct. I don't believe we're connected directly with Coursera. We've actually deployed our own platform. It's called Inflectra Campus, as Teresa mentioned. Here it is. And Inflectra Campus is basically a set of, first of all, videos and self-paced training modules. It also includes a certification piece. And if you go on LinkedIn and you search on it, you will find that people all over the world are actually taking our courses. Even though it's a Spira, obviously, a designed course, it teaches some of the basics of QA. So many of the courses are being taken by people to improve their knowledge. Many of our partners have taken them, and you'll see people on LinkedIn going, hey, I just got my Spira certification. So we do have the certification. You don't have to be a partner or a customer. You could just use it to train your team. Obviously, that most people are probably one of those people. And we have different courses available. So we do have the fundamentals, it's called. The basic fundamentals is free for both Spira, which is the product I showed today, but also our test automation product. We also have then the assessment you can do, and we also do have some more advanced courses that do have a fee if you want to go deeper into requirements management or testing or other aspects of the life cycle.
So I'm not seeing any additional questions. So I think with that, we can wrap up today's webinar. Again, thanks so much to our host, Adam Sandman, for providing the overall demonstration of SpiraTeam with that QA slant. We certainly welcome you to keep an eye on this channel if we have other webinars of different content coming up. But thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Teresa, for moderating, and thank you for attending, and look forward to seeing you on a future webinar.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.